Hello, I'm Daddy Rob, and welcome to Daddy Sex Talk. I am a gay, white, cisgender leatherman currently completing a postgraduate program in human sexuality at Widener University. On the Daddy Sex Talk podcast, we will fill in some of the blanks of the sex talk you got or didn't get as a child by answering your questions about gay male sex and sexuality in a sex-positive, kink-aware, and fact-based manner. On the podcast today, we're talking about a couple of the videos that I recently posted on my YouTube channel. If you haven't checked that out, I highly recommend doing so. Go to daddyrob.com and you can find the links in the episodes page. Today, I am joined by Boy Titan, and we'll be talking about those myths and expand on our feelings about them. And just to start out, for people who haven't seen the videos yet, to give you a spoiler, here are the 10 myths that I covered in those two videos. They are: gay is a sexual orientation, being gay is a choice, being gay is unnatural, gay is a mental disorder, there is a gay lifestyle, anal sex is gay, AIDS is a gay disease, gay men want to be women, gay can be a harmless playground word, gay people want or have special rights. So those are the 10 that I covered on the two videos. And we just want to go through, let's just start, Boy Titan, with number 1. Gay is a sexual orientation.
Well, thank you, Daddy, for having me, first off. Gay is a sexual orientation. The first time, actually, I saw the video that you produced for YouTube, which said it is not. Part of me, even as a gay man, because I identify myself as a gay man, part of me questioned that. I was suddenly like, wait, what do you mean? But then what became clear to me as we talked afterward was you said that gay is a word that seems to pertain more to an identity than an orientation. And that's an unusual separation in my mind, because I'm used to people thinking of gay as just meaning anything that has to do with homosexual life, romantic life, anything to do with a gay community, so forth. But the identity part, as you described it, is your acceptance and willingness to belong to a cultural understanding of being gay.
Yeah, I think a lot of people just make the assumption that homosexual and gay is synonymous, that they can be used interchangeably. And I think even when we're looking at homosexual, I don't know necessarily that all gay men are homosexuals. There may be bisexual men who identify as gay, but they're homoromantic. We talked about that in the first video in the series on YouTube, and that's the components of gay, and how much of that is homosexual, how much of it is homoromantic, how much of it is homosocial, what's the combination of them, how prevalent does one of those things have to be. But I think I think a majority of gay men would identify as homosexual, that they are turned on sexually by other men. But in that case, what I'm talking about with gay identity is everything that is piled on top of being homosexual. Once you identify as being attracted to men, there's a lot of stuff that comes with it if you use that as a public identity. There are a lot of assumptions that are made about you. There are a lot of things that you develop in yourself. There are things that you have to let go of and things that you take on. It's complicated, and that's the whole point of my YouTube series, is kind of to delve into the complications of that gay identity. And I think it's worth noting that there's a lot of speculation that gay identity may eventually disappear as this distinct cultural phenomenon.
Yes, particularly what we understand of actually, I don't even know if it's what's younger than millennials at this point. The youth of today, the youth of today seem to at least are growing up in a society that more understands and accepts a variety of sexual expression. At least they're exposed to it, and they seem to be willing to be more fluid about their concepts of whether they don't feel as the desperate need to stick to a straight identity or a gay identity or a bisexual identity. They're a little less concerned about that, and that does sound like it eventually, if that same trend continues. I don't care where you get your sexual pleasure, male, female, it doesn't matter to me. You're just a person, and hopefully that's what comes through in society, that we just don't care.
It's interesting. I did my last last week I did a podcast recording with my father, and he was talking about that he really wasn't exposed to gay as a term until the late 80s when HIV entered the news, and then
Yes.
there was a lot of talk about gay men. So then a lot of people were educated at that point on what gay was. So gay became synonymous with HIV, which is one of the things on the list, one of the myths that number 7, AIDS is a gay disease. So there's a reason why those two things are linked, as a lot of people didn't start using gay to talk about gay men until that time.
Well, certainly. I think a lot of people found it very easy to simply conveniently shut any concept of gay out of their day-to-day lives. They didn't watch media that specifically brought up gay issues necessarily. If they did see it, it's the one episode a year where something was even discussed. They laughed it off for a few seconds and then went on with their lives without ever really conceiving of that there's a whole section of population that they're ignoring, pretending doesn't exist.
Yeah, and if anybody's still confused in this day and age about what privilege is, that is kind of getting at what privilege is. Privilege is not having to think about something that doesn't normally enter into your reality. That straight people as a whole don't have to think about the gay experience or what it is to be a homosexual man in this society. It's just not something they have to think about.
They don't
have to think about how challenging it is. All they see are, and even people who know gay people, all they see are people who look like them. Mm-hmm. And assume that the only thing that's challenging for them is having an attraction for other men. And that's not the only challenging thing. There's a lot of things that, going to the identity of gay, I think the most challenging thing for me personally is this assumption of what that says about my masculinity.
Yes. Oh, absolutely.
Whether I'm a real man.
We had this experience not that long ago where a straight male friend of ours suggested that I was so theatrical, I should try drag. Mm-hmm. And I was immediately offended, but I knew he didn't mean offense by it. But I was immediately offended that because it's culturally true that cross-dressing and gay have been tied, and there are a lot of gay male, female impersonators. So, but just the instant assumption that would be where I would see myself.
But that's what I'm talking about with this being a myth, that gay is a sexual orientation. It's not. It is an identity, and there's a lot of assumptions that go along with that identity. Which extends beyond homosexuality, because homosexuality is a technical term. It is a technical thing to be a homosexual. It is actually a medical term, and a lot of people in the LGBT community don't like words like homosexual because it
sounds clinical.
Yeah.
It's dehumanizing.
Right. And gay is a human identity. And it's a challenging identity. It's also an empowering identity. I mean, let's be honest. A lot of the reason people consider themselves part of the gay community extends from the HIV pandemic. I mean, the worst of it in the late 80s and 90s, and it became at a time when our community was scared, our community was feeling ostracized, that we found power in connecting to that identity and knowing that there were more of us than we had originally thought. I mean, I've mentioned this before, but during this time was the beginning of that push you saw about coming out of the closet. You started hearing about outing, where people, celebrities were being outed whether they wanted to or not, because there was perceived to be some power in having the heteronormative society know gay people.
Yes.
The only way we were going to be able to have any power is if people had found the strength within themselves to come out to their friends and family. And as I talked about in my podcast, the motivating factor for me coming out to my parents was my lover passing away. And that they never knew him while he was alive as my lover, but he died, of HIV-related complications. And so that was the motivating factor for me having my parents intimately know somebody who was gay, and it made all the difference on how they viewed being gay. I don't know if it had simply been homosexual. I don't know that it would have been as profound a statement. I think it was they got to see my friends and the community that I ran in after I came out, and they saw that there actually was a community. And to build a community simply around your sexual proclivity, I mean, the kink community is basically that.
Yes.
But even with that, even the kink community, if you ever spend any time in it, it goes beyond the sex acts. There's this understanding of being judged for something that people should not actually care about. If we really stop and pause for a moment and think about all of the judgments that are placed on people for their demonstration of their sex or sexuality, why is it anybody's business? They keep going back to, we need to protect the children, but straight people are even protecting their children from straight sex.
Yes.
I mean, so it doesn't even matter whether it is, more colorful expression of sex. They don't want them seeing any kind of sex or sexuality.
Yes, we are a very twisted society. We both celebrate sex, constantly having it displayed in our media and our entertainment and
it sells every product.
in our products, exactly, while at the same time being terribly puritanical about the whole concept of talking about sex.
So gay is a sexual orientation. That was our number one on the list.
So again, the difference there is gay, at least...
Gay is actually an identity.
It's more of an identity than it is a description or an equivalent term for homosexual.
The danger of that is it has the potential of running into conflict with myth number 2, where being gay is a choice. There is some voices on more conservative sides that say that the gay identity should not be a protected group because it is a choice. Now, I want to be very clear about this. It is a choice to claim the gay identity. That is very much a choice. Homosexuality is not a choice. But since if you come out as somebody who is homosexual, society will label you as a gay person, whether you want that label or not. Because again, most, at least heteronormative society uses those terms interchangeably, gay or homosexual. And to be honest, people in the gay community use them interchangeably as well. I mean, it's not specific to straight people. So choosing the identity of gay is a choice. But what that is not a choice.
Well, as one of your videos pointed out, what is being gay? Is it homoromantic, homosocial, or homosexual? I mean, that's up to everybody to decide for themselves what equates to gay.
Yeah. But I truly believe that when people in conservative circles are talking about gay being a choice, what they're talking about is homosexuality being a choice. That somehow you are choosing to be with members of the same sex in a romantic or sexual way instead of being with opposite sex. And I'm not saying that your sexual orientation cannot evolve over a lifetime, but a lot of people, that's it for their lifetime. And that whole thing about conversion therapy, where if you just really wanted it bad enough, if you kept trying, if you keep trying a woman, eventually you might like a woman. Well, no, I'm sorry. I'm putting my foot down on this one. I'm a fairly open-minded person, but that again assumes that there is a right way to be, because why not make the same argument for heterosexuals? It's like, well, if you keep trying to sleep with somebody of the same sex, or you keep trying to think about, sexualizing or romanticizing a member of the same sex, you'll eventually be comfortable doing that.
Right.
But nobody says that, because it's not the heteronormative experience is the centered one. It's the one that this society believes everyone should be, because they're in the majority.
Right.
And society hates a minority. They just do. That's part of being. It's a very tribal thing. They want everybody kind of lockstep with whatever the tribe thinks and does the same thing, and that validates their identity. If everybody's straight, then straight is right.
And if everybody's Christian, then Christian is right. If everybody's
white,
then
Yeah. So it becomes what is accepted prejudice. And to continually say, well, there's some debate over whether or not homosexuality is a choice, then why not say, well, there's some debate of whether heterosexuality is a choice? It's a very heterocentric world, and heterosexual people as a whole don't have to think about what it is to be on the other side of that coin.
Yes, I agree.
Yeah, and so being gay, and as I said in the video, if it were a choice, I think there would be a lot less gay people in the world. It is not an easy identity to hold, and
Well,
one of the
being
things
different from the majority is never an easy
Yeah.
identity to hold, whatever that is, as we've already covered.
Yeah, and yeah, if you even before coming out, I recognized the oppression. I recognized the devaluation of a group of people because they were not real men. I mean, that still stings. That, you know, anytime I hear that kind of messaging, and even things like calling somebody a sissy,
Right.
it's all back to that misogynistic view. You know, it's again the centering of the straight white Christian male with, you know, middle class white Christian male.
Yeah.
And if you're not fitting into that category in any way, then you're struggling to get a piece of justice. You know, justice is reserved for this group of people, and everybody else has to scramble for their piece of justice. And by saying gay is a choice, it kind of helps negate the right we have to equality.
Oh, absolutely. Absolutely. They're saying what our identity, our even our orientation is simply misbehavior.
Yeah, and let's also be very clear. I had mentioned this. Yeah, I have to do a lot of editing on my YouTube videos. Yeah, cut out a lot of stuff because I when I'm recording them, I say a lot of, particularly if there's no script, I just like start talking about all these issues because there's so many things that I want to get out there. But one of the things I had mentioned in the video that I had to cut out was talking about the fact that as much as and let's be honest about this. A lot of this messaging comes from religious organizations.
Yes.
About gay being a choice and the whole conversion thing. That, you know, if you really worked at it, you could be, if not straight, not be gay. Right. But what's missing in their conversation is that they, as and this is kind of jumping to number 10 on our list, gay people want to have special rights. The people choose their religion.
Yes.
You choose to be religious. You choose to believe in a higher power, whatever your higher power is. That is a choice. You can say it is not a choice whether or not it exists. That's up to you to just, and actually you get to decide whether or not a higher power exists. Religion is all about choice. You can choose any religion. You don't have to stay with the one you were born in. If you were born atheist, you can choose to be, you know, convert or be born again. That's a choice you can make for your life. And that is one of the things that are specifically called out as protected classes from the beginning of this country is religion. Your choice of religion is protected on a daily basis. And to have the group of people whose rights are so protected that their organizations don't have to pay taxes. I mean, churches don't have to pay taxes. That they get special. That's a special right, by the way. They are an organization that makes money. Churches make money, and they don't have to pay taxes on it. Not only are they protected, they get special rights. And for that group of people to be talking about the gay community, the gay population, the gay identity as something that doesn't deserve protection because it's a choice, and that what we're looking for is special rights, I'm sorry, we're not looking for special rights. We're looking for equal rights. We're looking for the right to exist in this world and pursue our happiness and not have to face recrimination because of who we love, who we have sex with. I mean, just by the fact of who I lay in bed with at night, I don't deserve to have my job be compromised. I don't deserve to have my housing be compromised. And anybody who wants to sit there and make an argument that I should be able to lose my job or my home simply because of my identity, is not a Christian. Unless you are an Old Testament Christian who believes that God is out there to punish everyone who doesn't believe a very particular way. But by virtue of calling yourself a Christian, and I'm focusing on one particular religion, I get that. But that's the one I'm most knowledgeable about because that's what I come from. That Christian means that you are a follower of Christ, which is the Jesus of the New Testament who preached love and acceptance and non-judgment and loving your neighbor as you love yourself, all that feel-good hippie stuff. So how you can ascribe to this as the person that you're following and still condemn a group of people to the point where you don't think they deserve protection, that they deserve shelter, that they deserve financial support. That seems like a stretch to me.
Well, I think a lot of them try to defend themselves by believing what you have as number three, the myth number three, that being gay is unnatural, that choice and unnatural kind of go hand in hand. They believe that they sincerely believe that even if you had an urge ever to feel romantic or sexual toward a person of your own gender, you should have immediately fought it and won, because that's the natural way, is to stay heterosexual, stay the norm. And so you made a choice at some point, and it's an unnatural choice. It's not the way our society
I'm sure
intended.
I'm just going to relate that to anybody, particularly anybody in our audience who's listening who isn't gay. How insulting it is to hear that I did not fight homosexual urges hard enough. That it was a choice, and I just wasn't strong enough to choose differently. I still recall being in my high school, junior high school, and I still recall writing in a journal. At that time, I was like, I don't know whether I'm bisexual or what, but God, take this thing away from me. And I remember being constantly aware that there was something. It took me a while to kind of narrow in on what it was. I mean, I remember feeling out of...
You were other.
I remember feeling other as long as I can remember. I just remember I never felt like I fit in. And later, looking back, I can name it now. I can name the fact that I was a homosexual person in a heteronormative world. And I was starting to get that when I was in high school. I was starting to, but by that time I had already decided I was going to be a Catholic priest. And I was like, I'm not, as soon as I go from high school, I'm going into the seminary. I'm never going to have sex, and I'm not going to have to worry about it. But I knew that there was something wrong, quote, air quotes, wrong, about my sexuality. And I prayed. I was a Christian child. I mean, I was a born again Christian. I was a Catholic, and who attended born again prayer meetings that happened in our Catholic Church. There's something called the Charismatic Movement, which was basically born again Catholics. And I turned my life over to Christ. And the only thing I continually asked is, take this one thing from me. I never asked for anything else. My prayer was the same every time. So to say I didn't work hard enough, I mean, I dated a girl my senior year of high school, who was a friend of mine. And, it evolved into a romantic relationship. And because I wanted to be straight. And it just never fit. It never felt comfortable. And I kept trying to be straight, and it just didn't work. And to hear somebody say that it's a choice and that I could have made a different choice, they don't know what that struggle is. They don't know what the struggle is to accept an identity that is so foreign from the community that you're in.
I honestly never felt like I fit in with my family very well when I was growing up. And when I recognized that I had an attraction two members of my own gender at the same time, people who expressed masculine traits. When I recognized that I was attracted to those more than to women, at first it didn't mean anything at all to me. When I recognized that it was actually a thing, that there were gay people, there were homosexuals that existed, I instantly knew, oh, well, that's what I am. I didn't try and fight it. I was 100% sure, well, this is just the way I feel. All I'm doing is naming it. I don't have to fight it. It's just, this is what I'm stuck with, whether it's good or bad. It's what I am. So I didn't really fight it that way. I didn't pray to have it taken away from me. I just wasn't sure I was ever going to be happy, because I figured I would have to do what I was taught. That, oh, well, society, media, old movies, a lot of things taught us that gay people have tragic endings. The gay people always, either they were the villains in media, or they were people who died suddenly, or often victims of something, or they killed themselves. I mean, that was the media. That was over and over and over what I knew about what it meant to be gay. And so I didn't really pray to have it taken away. I just prayed that I wouldn't follow that path, that I would find somehow happiness.
It may make a difference on how religious the household was you grew up in, or where you grew up. I don't know what the community experience was in Cape Cod, but I mean, I grew up in a small town in Iowa, and it was very conservative. It was a very conservative area.
We were transplants everywhere we went as kids, and I never had more than one or two friends, at a time, really, ever. So I was like, I was always the loner. I was always the outcast. Now,
I talked about this in the YouTube video, but I think that there are a lot of particularly straight men who have this memory of being younger and having what they considered kind of an attraction to some hyper masculine male figure, whether it be in sports or action movies or whatever, and had a moment where they're like, oh, he's hot, and then they're like, oh my god, am I gay? It was like, no, I actually like women, and then they moved on, and that's where they thought the choice was. That's when they made the choice to be straight. And it's like, that's nothing like the struggle.
I've always thought that when they say choice, what they're basically saying is you're being deliberately difficult. It's not when they say
I'm
choice.
Just trying to tick you off.
Yes. You homosexual people, all you have to do is just get into bed with the opposite gender person. You're just being obstinate. That's a choice. That's what I've always heard whenever I've heard choice, was it's you're just misbehaving on purpose.
And that may very well be what some of them mean, but I'm just sitting here and think about how ridiculous that is. And maybe it's because I'm on this side of it. Because I think if you said that to a straight person, it's like, well, you're just being obstinate. You're not getting on your knees and sucking something because you just want to be straight, and you're not even going to try this. Nobody would.
It's a choice not to try it.
Yeah.
Yeah, that's always what I've heard whenever.
Maybe that's another myth I should have on this list. Now that we're talking about this, is not every gay man fetishizes straight men. I think every straight man has this concept that gay men are just waiting to bag them. I am not attracted to straight men. Once I find out that a man is straight, he is completely unattractive to me.
I agree.
I think that there are people who like the unattainable. I think that there may be some gay men who fetishize straight men simply for the fact that they can't have them, which makes it's the forbidden fruit. But I only want to have sexual relationships with somebody that I know will enjoy it and want it, and that I don't have to work to get them to appreciate it. There are enough gay men in the world. I don't need to be lusting after straight men. Yeah, I know what I find attractive. It is that intrinsically a part of who I am that I find gay men more attractive than straight men. And therefore, I only sleep with gay men, because that's what I find attractive. That may make me biased or prejudiced, towards gay men, but in that particular area, I think what turns you on, and gay men turn me on.
I'm right there with you. I have no attraction to a straight man that is affected by the fact that he's straight. I have no attraction once I find out that if you declare yourself as such, I have to believe you are 100% accurate in that, and I have no interest in chasing something that I won't attain. Why would I do that?
And I'm all about consent and any type of coercement of somebody to sleep with me. Number one is just an ego bust, that I had to use some connivery. It's like Margaret Cho said, about how she's had a dry spell, and the way she attracts men is like puts leaves over her vagina in hopes that a guy falls in. Yeah. So number 4, gay is a mental disorder. I think it's worth mentioning that in 1973, the American Psychiatric Association removed homosexuality from the DSM, which is the list of the official list of mental disorders. If you are a mental health professional, you have to find within a book of mental disorders that mental disorder and then write down the number associated with that. And they use that for insurance. They use that for a variety of reasons. But it has to be in this book. And homosexuality was in that book until 1973. Does that mean that it was a mental disorder before 1973? No. Depending on who you ask. Because if you think about it, mental disorders are determined by those that are in power. And for the longest time, if not still the case, I haven't done a census of the American Psychiatric Association and the people who make the decisions. But for the longest time, it was run by, what's that group? Straight white Christian men with money. Judeo-Christian men. Straight white Judeo-Christian men with money. And they got to decide what was mentally healthy and what wasn't. That's why hysteria or women's issues was so prevalent for so long, because there's just something wrong with women, according to this group of men who made the rules. So more women are still diagnosed with mental disorders than men are, but women are also more likely to go see a therapist than men are. But as far as what has been officially coined a mental disorder, homosexuality has not been one since 1973 officially. And a lot of that coincided with the free love movement and just kind of the sexual revolution and an evolution on how we view sex and sexuality, and that maybe alternative expressions of sex and sexuality are okay. The only thing that should be central to deciding whether something is a mental disorder is already covered in the DSM, and that is one of the things is it has to be distressing to the individual.
Okay, so if whatever it is they feel is right for them and they don't feel distress directly from their own urges, their own compulsions, their own drives, then that is not a disorder, because they themselves accept it as part of themselves.
Although there are some things that can be labeled problematic by people other than the individual. It's like they may not think that this is disturbing their lifestyle, but their life, but we know it is, and they're harming themselves by doing this.
Again, there's this whole judgment thing. Who gets to decide what's disorderly about a thing other than the individual themselves? If someone feels that they themselves just cannot are disordered by whatever their urges are, then yes, that's a disorder just because they've declared it. But society shouldn't have the ability to make that judgment as what's
that they do
disorderly, because if they do, well, people have compulsions for a lot of things. Religious zealotry is a compulsion for a lot of people. The denial of facts and figures because they're on the media and we don't trust the media, that's a compulsion.
And could be considered problematic and possibly damaging.
Exactly. So those are just as much disorders as anything, we're talking about. And so for certain things to be considered a mental disorder and others not is a judgment call.
Yeah. But then there's the other side of that, of those that are disturbed by their own homosexuality. And I would hope that therapists, if somebody went in and said, even though it's not considered a mental disorder, I think a lot of therapists, particularly Christian therapists, if somebody's like, I'm having gay urges and I don't want to have them, I want to be straight, then a therapist may work with them to help them overcome it because it's something that they're distressed about themselves. But I would hope that more therapists would be like, let's explore why you have a problem
Exactly.
with that.
What is the root
urge.
of that distress?
Yeah, because
What
it's
is-
not a mental disorder. It's a natural. It is a natural expression of sexuality. It is
Exactly. It's a
That's not an
natural
argument.
preference to have.
And don't, if you feel differently, don't bother writing in, because you're never going to convince me that homosexuality is not as natural an expression of sexuality as heterosexuality is. In fact, there's an argument to be made that by that looking at sexuality as dualistic, that you're either straight or gay is off. That both ends of the spectrum are an extremism, and that what people should be aiming for as far as mental health and is that's closer to the center of that spectrum.
Right. I'm attracted to what I'm attracted to.
Well, and basically pansexuality. So I was having a conversation with somebody where they were saying, or bisexual. It's like, well, no, bisexual still kind of buys into that there's only two options, and there's not. There's a world between that you can move in, and to latch on to one side could be argued that that is a pathology, that I am so scared of what the other thing is that I'm not going to venture off of this endpoint. And it may feel like it's natural, but we can delude ourselves into believing a lot of things are natural. So there's still some debate of where the natural thing is on that spectrum, but I do believe that there's a spectrum. Yeah, and I think a lot of people believe that as well. Although a lot of people only believe that this spectrum is just the two ends.
I think a lot of people accept now bisexuality.
Oh,
as
I think a lot of people do, but I think that there are a lot of people who only see
still
the
the
two
two
ends. You're
Right.
either one or the other.
particularly if you're male. Because,
Yeah, oh, God,
because
yes.
as one of your videos pointed out, most people who hear bisexual male think, well, he's just not willing to admit he's gay. That's immediately what I think comes to most people's mind when they hear of a bisexual male. Bisexual females are accepted a lot more with their fluidity.
They can experiment in college with other women and then get married to a man after they graduate and have children, and they were just had a fun history. Yeah, they were experimental again. That's because women's sexuality is fetishized. Men's sexuality is as the central sexuality is not.
And again, essential because men decided it was so.
Yeah, exactly.
I mean, we're actually, there are fewer males on the planet than females, but we still, as a society, treat
Yeah, it's kind of messed up
men
if you
as
think
the
about it.
center, which is ridiculous, yes.
So number 6 is anal sex is gay. I think we kind of touched on that, but
Well, we
so to
touched on
speak.
kinks as being, kinks are whatever you do that is not
There's no
declared
one
the
sex
norm
act
by
that's
somebody
gay.
else.
There's no
So
there's no one thing that every gay man does. There just isn't. There is not one thing every gay man does. And all those things that you might assume are gay sex acts, there are straight men who enjoy those same things. It's I think the difference may be who you're doing it with. However, that these sex acts, if you're doing them with a man, they're gay. If you're doing them with a woman, you're straight. Like anal sex. There are gay men who enjoy anal sex. There are straight men who enjoy anal sex, and a lot of them enjoy, like I say in the video, a lot of them enjoy pegging, which is having their sexual partner, generally a woman. Well, it's usually a strap-on dildo, and that they penetrate. The woman gets on top of the male and penetrates him and stimulates his prostate. And it's physiologically enjoyable because it is enjoyable to have your prostate worked over regardless of your identity. It's a physiological response that every man has. If he can relax into it, if he can get over the psychological block, if he doesn't have any issues with trauma around his anus, there's a number of things that might prevent the enjoyment of that. But physiologically, they should be able to enjoy it just as much as people assume gay men enjoy it. It's the same body.
it is the same body. I guess we all have slightly different centers of nerves in our bodies, so that some people have greater senses of taste than others. Some people can discern many more smells than others do. So I have to think that, okay, some men may find more enjoyment from prostate than others.
Oh yeah, like I said, there are gay men who don't enjoy anal sex at all.
Right.
For the same reasons that straight men
Right.
don't enjoy anal sex.
But whether or not you enjoy the stimulation of your prostate is not a gay or straight.
Right.
That doesn't indicate whether you're gay or straight.
Right.
You can easily enjoy your prostate as a straight man.
Yeah, and I also know, I'm not going to out any of them, but I know that there are straight men who get into anal play with other men. I've known them through the kink community when they've played in gay spaces because they like to be flogged or they like to be whipped or whatever. There are some straight men who, and they like to be flogged or whipped by men because the men have, traditionally stronger upper body. And so the force that they want to feel, they can only get from another man. But they're straight, but are willing or are open to that type of play with other men. And there are straight men, who also enjoy having a gay man with a dildo work their ass over, because gay men know what that feels like.
Yeah.
If they are into anal sex.
They're into anal sex, right?
Yeah,
exactly.
So
Back
they know how their prostate works, which gives them a better idea of how to stimulate another man's prostate. And there are straight men who have psychologically been able to make that leap and go, I can do this with a man.
Because they're an expert.
Yeah, but I'm not attracted to him. I'm attracted to that particular feeling and the way he can do this. Does that make sense?
It absolutely makes sense.
And they still hold on to his
it's
straight identity. He's just somebody who has a particular sexual proclivity that only a man can do for him in the way that he wants it done. But then he goes back to his wife or girlfriend or whatever, and it's not, hopefully, it's something that's like an open conversation with them. I hate to be keeping that, anything about yourself away from a partner, but it doesn't affect a man's ability to go back to his female partner and have a heterosexual lifestyle, a heterosexual experience. He can't go back and have doesn't mean he can't go back and have a heterosexual experience with his female partner or partners. And so, again, anal sex, not gay. Nothing. There is no gay sex act. There just isn't. 7 was AIDS is a gay disease. We kind of covered that. 8, gay men want to be women. I don't. Never have. It was actually kind of disturbing. One of my earliest exposures to gay men in media was Jody on Soap.
Yes.
And his character was introduced as a gay man. Or actually, I don't know if he was called gay.
And
was that the term
yes,
used for him?
He was called gay. He self-declared himself to be a gay man on the series.
A gay man who was wanting to have a sex change in order to be with his professional football player lover.
Yes.
Male professional football
player. His
lover.
Gender could be changed so that he could fit in for society's expectations of...
Yeah. I mean, you never saw him in full drag on the show, but you saw him in a dress at least once.
Yes.
His mother walked in and caught him in his dress. And she was upset because he looked better in it than she did, if I remember correctly. But there is that kind of concept. Again, going back to gay men are not real men. And I think that's what this ties into. That once you identify as gay, then you're no longer a man, so you must be a woman. Again,
this is our society's method of exalting masculinity and denigrating femininity.
Oh yeah.
Overall, I mean that's unfortunately what our society still does. So yes, for a man to put on any garb of a woman or whatever seems to bring them down from that false peak of masculine.
Yeah, and a lot of it I think comes from the prevalence of drag queens in the gay community. I mean, it's something that's strongly associated with the gay community is drag queens. And drag queens, as I say in the video, it's theatrical. They're playing a role. There are trans women
yes,
in the gay male community who either have not transitioned yet or have transitioned. I mean, they still stay in the gay community because that's the community that they came up in. But the gay community was like their first kind of experience of not being tied to strict gender roles. So within the gay, they could exist in the gay community and have these feminine attributes and not be ostracized. And then part of their personal journey may have been to do drag, and then eventually determine that what they were looking for was their true identity, which was that of a woman. Mm-hmm. But that's, again, transgender women are not men who want to be women. Transgender women are women.
Right. They are individuals who recognize themselves as women, regardless of what the body that they happen to be wearing is.
Yeah. It is not intrinsic to the gay identity to want to be a woman.
Want to switch to the opposite gender.
Yeah. I mean, there may be people who identify as gay men who eventually transition to a woman, and there are many who may want to make that transition but never do. But it doesn't mean that every gay man wants to give up his manhood or his masculinity.
Right. No, I absolutely think
not. I think it's a real minority of the gay community that wants to be something other than a gay man. I mean, when they identify as a gay man, that's 100%. I am a gay man. For those people.
Absolutely. We all know gay men who recognize their attraction to masculine aspects of other people, and then because they find them attractive, they engender them themselves. They layer themselves with the things that they find attractive in others.
And I keep going back to this. There's no one way of being gay. There's many ways of being gay. Gay being identity means that there's a lot of component pieces that can be taken out and put in, infinite combinations can create a gay man. There is no one way to be gay. And when we're talking about myths, it's that idea that not every gay man follows these particular rules. It does not come with being gay. These 10 things, as soon as you say I'm gay, aren't part of your identity now. These are things that are put on based on stereotypes or based on prejudice or based on a desire to keep people marginalized. So that brings us to number 9. Gay can be a harmless playground word.
I understand how much gay slipped into the common language of school kids, but if gay is not, whether or not it's meant as and I've approached even someone who said that in conversation with me, said something was so gay, and I countered her on it, and I specifically said, I find that offensive. As a gay man, I find it offensive you using that as a negative term. And she said, it has nothing to do with your sexuality. But even if it had no intent from her mind of being an assault on my sexuality, to use the same term to equate what she was clearly describing as a negative thing, a hateful, a lesser thing, with the same term as my identity, was by itself negative. It's hurtful. It's damaging to.
I'm curious, when you called her out on that, was that, do you recall, did you say, I have a problem with you using that word because it's, I'm gay, or did you say, I find that offensive, and she went to, it's not talking about your
I'm pretty sure I said the latter. I was like, I'm sorry, but I really find that offensive.
And she automatically went, I'm not talking. Because my thought is the fact that she did not need to be prompted for the fact that that's why it was offensive, that she could automatically draw that out as I understand. I don't mean, I'm not talking about your orientation, means that she recognized that could be automatically placed there by somebody.
Oh, absolutely.
Yeah, it wasn't like she had to be told, it doesn't mean what you think it means, but she knew what the possible offense could be, and she did not have to be told, yet she still chose to.
Because she didn't think of it, she didn't think of her use as being something with a connotation to sexuality.
And instead of using her privilege to apologize and make amends for it, she used her privilege to allow herself to use it in the way that she wanted to use it.
Yes.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Yeah, and that's the problem. Is it's because it's not just children. It's not just a children's playground word. That there are adults that have used it. And I was looking up the etymology of this because I wanted to know what the evolution of the word gay was, and it wasn't until the 90s that gay started to be used as another word for stupid or dumb. Or something that they don't like. And so it came on the heels of the expansion of the use or the knowledge of the word gay to talk about the homosexual community. So it came hot on the heels of that. So it strongly enters the lexicon. Gay enters the lexicon to talk about men of a particular type, and then quickly evolves into also being stupid or dumb. So I have a hard time saying that one didn't have anything to do with the other. I think it's very similar to policing masculinity by using fag or faggot or
sissy.
homo.
Just plain old sissy.
Yeah, it all ties into this misogynistic, ascendancy of the patriarchy, blah blah blah. All that. It's a very much a gatekeeping word. It's used to keep boys masculine. If you hear these particular words, then you've done something that strays outside of the expectation for masculinity. And as I say in the video, even if it's not, and it's not just the gatekeeping, what it does is ties the word gay to something negative. Right. So that becomes like the subliminal message you hear when you're talking about gay people. If you have connected the word gay to stupid or dumb or something's wrong with it, when you're talking about these, how memory sets up that it's all connected, that's the same connection to that word gay also means homosexual, then what you're saying is homosexual is stupid, homosexual is dumb. And that may sound like a stretch, but psychologically it's a very short neuron trip from one to the other. So your brain is now wiring itself to connect gay to negative. And that's not... And there's so many gay men who walk around with psychological issues that are tied into their diminished sense of self, which is a result of things like that, of these societal accepted ways of talking about gay, even just the word. The fact that these things are allowed to continue continues to undermine the mental health of gay men. It also... And as I say in the video, even if you're using this to talk about heterosexual children that won't be gay when they grow up, they're still being trained to be men using that word. They're still being trained to distance themselves from emotional reactions to things or any kind of perceived weakness, anything that's considered feminine and weak, that they are trained out of. They lose compassion. They lose joy. If the only feelings that they're allowed to have, the only expressions are the stereotypically masculine ones, then they're cutting off a part of their existence in order to uphold masculinity. And that's the power of that word. It's the power of words like it. So to say that they are just harmless playground words, they may be used as playground words, but they are far from harmless. So number 10, gay people want or have special rights, and I think we pretty much beat that one into the ground, but I still do not believe gay people want special rights. They want equal rights. And we do not have equal rights at this time. There was a Supreme Court decision last year that supposedly provides a federal level of protection for anti-discrimination by subsuming sexual orientation under sex as a protection. There's already protection based on sex, which traditionally has been viewed, men or women. Right. But now, based on the Supreme Court decision last year on these two employment cases where people lost their jobs because they were gay, we supposedly have federal protection, but that's, that hasn't been tested, and there's, still legislation that could be written either way on this. So it's kind of an untested thing on a federal level of somebody else tried it. I don't know.
Well,
I think a lot of corporations now are going to be like, nope. But that only, if I remember correctly, that only applies to companies with like more than 15 employees or something like that. So it's not like universal protection.
Well, and there are religious exemptions for all of them. So, of course, any sort of religious organization is allowed to discriminate all they want.
Yeah. But there's nothing specifically calling out sexual orientation as a protected class. So it's again, interpretation of existing text. And as we've seen, interpretations of things change over the time. So it doesn't mean 10 years from now there can't be some argument that goes to the Supreme Court and they go, well, we're interpreting sex to mean assigned at birth, whatever sex you were assigned at birth. So there's still no, you can't relax.
Right.
And I think basically when we're talking about equal rights is that what we want is the right to relax, to know we're safe in any space, that we can go anywhere, and if anybody even tries anything, that they will be punished for it, that they will be held accountable for that hating or causing violence or whatever based simply on
firing us, shunning us, ejecting us from apartments, doing something strictly because of our
even in religious groups, because religious groups are still held to the discrimination law. They're still held to sex and race and all the things that are traditionally considered protected classes. They still have to abide by the fact that they get a religious exemption for orientation, or that they can, or they have so far, is, I haven't got words. It doesn't
reprehensible
align. Yeah, that works. It doesn't align with my interpretation of Christianity, but everybody gets their own definition of it. And just to go back to something I said earlier, even though the Constitution declares that there is protection for religion, there's also protection from religion. There is no requirement to have a religious affiliation in this country. In fact, that's protected as well, that you don't have to
ascribe to any particular religion, any particular faith.
It's religious freedom. Freedom from and freedom of. So I think we need to remember that when we're talking about who has rights and who doesn't. We all have rights regardless of what God we do or do not pray to. Well, that was a great discussion of the myths. I'd like to thank my guest, Boy Titan, for being brave enough to go through this list with me and talk about these myths. And they most decidedly are myths. I mean, and a large part of this is what we assume about people based on identity. And you cannot make any of these assumptions just because somebody tells you that they're a gay person. Or if you're trying to decide for yourself whether you're gay or not, it's like, well, I'm not gay because I'm not this thing. If it's on this list, you can be gay and not have that thing applied to you.
Right. You are an individual.
Yeah. And that's that's why we have a rainbow flag as that represents this community. It's because we are a composite of many different things, and there is no one color for the flag because we don't all come in one color. We come in a variety of color. We use every color in the crayon box, as RuPaul would say. So anyway, thanks again, Boy Titan. I look forward to talking to you again in the future. And thanks for listening to this episode of Daddy's Sex Talk Podcast. Again, my name is Daddy Rob, and I am here to answer your questions about gay male sex and sexuality. If you have any questions you would like me to answer in future podcasts, please reach out and contact me on Twitter @TheDaddyRob, or email me at daddyrob@daddyrob.com. Make sure you check out daddyrob.com for additional podcasts and videos to support you on your journey of empowerment through sexual knowledge. Thanks again for spending this time with me, and until next time, remember that you are the most amazing person in the universe, and your daddy loves you.